guys, happy Thursday. Tomorrow you guys will have your normal quiz for math from your Zerm lessons and for science for your science lessons. But don't forget, each day you also have a question after your science video. But today it's going to look a little different. Today you're going to have Google Slides and you're going to practice physical and chemical changes, and also you're going to practice the heat transfers, convection, conduction, and radiation. And I'll show you how to do that in a minute, but first I want to review the changes and the heat transfers. So remember, the law of conservation of matter tells us that once matter is here on Earth, it is not going to leave Earth. It can change, but it is not going to leave. And the two ways that it can change are either a physical or a chemical change. A physical change is not going to create a new substance. So, and it can usually be undone. So examples of that would be glass breaking, a pencil being broken in half, cutting a log in half, ripping paper, anything that does not create a new substance. And one of the biggest things we need to remember is that the water cycle, anything in the water cycle is a physical change. So when an ice cube melts, it does look different, but the only thing that happened is the molecules move further apart. If you were to keep adding heat to that ice cube that melted, eventually it's going to turn into water vapor. And once again, the molecules are the same. Nothing new is made. They're just further apart because you were continuing to add heat. And when you add heat, you're adding energy, and those molecules are going to go further apart from each other. And then we also talked about the chemical changes, and a chemical change does create a new substance that was not there before. So for an example, when you leave your bike out and it rains for too long, you might get some rust on your bike. That rust wasn't there before, that's a new substance. So rusting is a chemical change. Photosynthesis, ripening of fruit are chemical changes. Anything that cannot be undone and created a new substance. Anytime you burn something and it turns into ash, that is a chemical change because you can't take ash and turn it back into what it was before. Then we also talked about the three heat transfers: convection, conduction, and radiation. Convection, remember, has a V in it, and when you make a V, your arms rise. And convection is heat rising, and so that occurs in liquids and gases. It can occur in sand, if you remember from the lesson, and sand is a solid, but generally only liquids and gases. And that is heat rising. Well, why does the heat rise? Because when you add heat, you're adding energy. So those molecules are going to move further apart from each other, and that air or that gas or that liquid is going to become lighter than the gases and liquids around it, and it's going to rise to the top. That is why water boils, and that is why the top of the pool is warmer than the bottom of the pool, or your upstairs is generally, especially in the summer, your upstairs is usually warmer than the downstairs because heat rises. It's going to become lighter and rise. And then we talked about conduction, which I like to say conduction because it sounds like touch. And conduction is when heat transfers from one object to another. So that energy transfers, those molecules, that energy transfers from one object to another. So if I were to have a coffee mug, let's pretend this is a coffee mug. If I were to have a coffee mug and it's full of hot coffee, that hot coffee is going to transfer the energy to the mug. And so that energy is heat, remember? And that mug is going to transfer the energy, that heat, to your hand. And so that is, conduction is through direct touch. And it doesn't just have to be when you touch something. It can be when two objects that are not even living are touching each other. For example, the coffee to the mug. That is also conduction. And don't forget that the best conductor is metal. It holds heat the best. So that's generally why your baking equipment is going to be, and kitchen utensils are going to be metal. And then finally, we talked about radiation, and that is the transfer of heat through electromagnetic waves. So the best example of that is just going out in the sun and when you feel the heat. Obviously, you're not touching the sun, you're not floating over the sun. That would be conduction and then convection. But radiation is when you feel that heat. And another example of that is just when really any time that you're feeling heat, that you're not touching something or you're not above it. So today we are going to get on our Google Slides, and you don't have a question. This is going to count as your assignment as well. And you are going to just move each text box where it needs to go. So unfortunately, my camera is not wanting to switch. I was having some technical issues. But for physical and chemical change, you guys can see the photosynthesis right here, text box. I'm going to hover over it until I get that arrow, that 4 white arrows in each direction. And once I have those 4 white areas in each direction, I can move it where it needs to go. So photosynthesis, is that physical or chemical? Well, that is when plants make sugars that weren't there before. So that is a chemical change. So I'm just going to slide it over here and keep it there. Okay, so oops, sorry you guys can't see that. So I just slid it right over there, and now photosynthesis under there. So remember, when you get onto your text box, you just need to be patient and just click on the text box and then hover over it until you see that arrow in each direction. Once you see that arrow, you know it is ready to move, and you can move it under the column it belongs. Same with heat transfer. With the heat transfer slide, we have our text boxes. You just click on it and you'll find the text boxes and just hover over it until it becomes the arrow in 4 different directions. Once you get that, you can move it. So becoming warm, sitting next to a fire, you'll put that under either conduction, convection, or radiation. I'm not going to give you 2 answers though. All right, guys, so get that, and make sure when you're done, you turn it in. Bye.